Festus Aboagye, this problem, reminiscent of the Dagbon situation, you've had judicial interventions that failed. You've had legislative interventions. You've had administrative from the government trying to impose certain things by decrees that have failed. This military option that appears to be the focus of the minister now, because he says that he's sending 500 more military personnel next week. We understand that, they had 50 and the soldiers was moved to 400, and says now he's sending another 500 task force to Bawku next week. Is this helpful?
Well, first of all, as per procedure, let me thank you very much for having me and say hello to all the colleagues, both in the studio and online. My understanding of the approach of government is that it seems as if the military deployment itself is an end in itself. This conflict, as indeed many inter-ethnic conflicts and other conflicts, are never solved through the use of force. And anybody who understands the cultural and historical dynamics of the Kusasi-Mamprosi conflict within the wider Mole-Dagboni conflict between the autochthones and the Nanum, Mamprosi, and Dagbon, let me call them overlords, can never be solved by deploying the military. The military essentially is to try and contribute to de-escalation of the violence that rose up within a very short space of time, in order that it creates that kind of space, not geographical space, but a space where mediation and dialogue can begin to take place constructively. In doing so, it doesn't help at all that certain utterances by politically exposed persons, including the defense minister, start labeling any or all the parties as criminals. It doesn't help. In fact, the books say that labeling or putting labels on parties in a conflict is counterproductive. It helps to inflame passions. So the first step in dealing with the situation in Bawku, which is to de-escalate the tension, is for all sides and all the entities involved, those in power, those in parliament, which indeed has become a proxy to the battle space, must be measured in their statements. But I'm more interested in the deployment of the military, which I understand to be a conflict management mechanism, not a conflict resolution mechanism. We all understand that the government has been reactive, and probably there was a failure in intelligence, because if intelligence was working, the state should have known sometime late last year, from June, July, August, September, October, November, thereabout, that there were signs of conflict erupting in Bawku. We have been reactive, and therefore that intelligence aspect, which has been mentioned by my colleague, needs to be, deepened. The military just imposed a curfew, which is to restrict movements, including motorbikes, persons, and so on. And that has had socioeconomic, consequences. In this economic climate, how do we expect the Kusasis and the Mamprusis, the Bisas, the Moshis, the Mobes, and so on in that enclave? How do we expect them to survive? So, there is need, as indeed the military has sought to do, to declare Bawku, the whole Bawku East-West, as a weapons-free zone. Now, how they go about it is where we have a challenge, or I have a challenge with. First of all, what are the political goals for the deployment of the military? As far as I'm concerned, I don't know what the political objectives are for deploying the military. Except, of course, the minister said in Parliament that they must go and maintain peace.
That's right.
So, subject to maintaining peace, what are the tasks that the military have been authorized to undertake? What are their concept of operations? Especially, what are the rules of engagement? Because security forces don't deploy because they have been mandated to go and maintain peace, and they are going to use force. And in one incident, 10 people get killed, and that is labeled as neutralization. It raises a lot of legal, political, humanitarian, or human rights issues. And I think we need to begin to work towards that. My humble suggestion at this stage, I've got many other points, is that if this same security force approach has been adopted, let's say, in a place like South Sudan by the UN would have established joint monitoring committees or teams. The press releases that have come have said that when intelligence was obtained or information was obtained, the military deployed or security forces deployed a patrol. Why can't it be a joint patrol in which the parties, both the Kusasis and the Mamprusis, are part of? It's a confidence-building measure.
Right.
It also promotes transparency, and if you like, a bit of impartiality and so on and so forth. Lastly,
okay.
Yes, please. You ask.
Yes, your friend, Dr. Vladimir Enchidanso,
Yes.
Dean of the Ghana Armed Forces Command and Staff College, he has, advised government to invest heavily in gathering intelligence on the terrorist activities in Bawku. Terrorist activities in the area. He speaks of terrorist organizations that must be stopped immediately. What do you see? Is it not clear, gauging from the information we are picking, including from the Minister, Defense, that there was an attempt to blow up a bridge? And knowing about the influx of, these people seeking, as it were, shelter, there. Is he not right in asking us to label what is going on exactly as what it is? There's terrorist activity going on. There is terrorist organization operation going on.
The dilemma for all of us, particularly for the government and the minister, is that the fact that there's a cockroach in your room or house doesn't mean you bring down the whole house to look for that one cockroach. That is what I call the Malu doctrine. That's the late General Victor Malu. Granted that we have terrorism echoing off our northern borders, that is the more reason why we must be very, very balanced in the use of force. Because any one person that you kill can be a catalyst for the group that that person belongs to seek alliances from across the border. And therefore, if you like, complicate, the situation that we have on hand. So let's deal with the threat of terrorism. And as you said, Dr. Vladimir Enchidanso says that let's deepen our intelligence capacities or capabilities But let's isolate the counter-terrorism approaches from the Bawku conflict and how we are seeking to resolve it. And at this stage, it looks like the activities of the security forces are actually inflaming passions and making it possible for some of the parties probably to seek alliances from other groups across the border, or for those groups to offer their services, and even for those who are behind the mobilizations, some of whom may be in Accra, who provide the funding, to provide the funds for the purchase of arms. And I'm reliably informed that there are machine guns being used in that conflict. That is a very serious sense of escalation.
Right.
Why did we allow this conflict late last year to get to where it is? That in one day or 1 week, we lose 10 lives, if not more. And we begin to see machine guns beyond the normal Kalashnikovs or AK-47s. That sense of escalation is something that I think we need to be very concerned about.
Right.